morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, I'm here to talk to you about Paldean Fates. We're a month into Paldean Fates. Not only are we a month into Paldean Fates, but we finally reached that magical time where everything's available. The booster bundle releases, well, as I record this today, it might be going up today. I think it might actually be going up today. But as I record this, we finally hit the point. Well, two different milestones. Firstly, the set's been out for 4 weeks. Secondly, every product is actually out. Remember, we had 3 different waves of releases of products. So when you add all of that together, yeah, we have hit the time where we need to go, okay, it's time to have another look and see what's actually going on with these Paldean Fates prices, because I'll tell you what, there is a lot of change about, and that's awesome. For instance, I showed you, before we get into the top 10, the other day I told you that there were 3 colourless Pokemon, all of which had made, frankly, surprising jumps in terms of price. I told you they had all jumped up a little more than we might expect, and that this didn't make a huge amount of sense. And what have we seen? They've all gone back down again. It's Pidgeotto and Snorlax. They were on the screen when I said that. But if we have a look at Snorlax, it jumped up to $15. It's now down to, well, it's one of those ones like it says 12, but it's not really 12. It's more like 10.75, maybe even a little bit less. Snorlax, frankly, on the down. And look, I love Snorlax, second best Gen 1 Pokemon, but let's be honest with ourselves, should never have been jumping up in price. Ditto jumped up to $20. It's now, TCG player says 13, but really it's 12 or maybe a little bit less. These jumps that we saw, I told you, didn't make a huge amount of sense at the time. And they do seem to be correcting themselves quite nicely. Pidgey was one that actually did make sense, but it's dropped from $18 down to, well, it says 14, but it's really nearer about 12, because Pidgey is at least a basic that sees a bunch of play, but no. Let's be perfectly clear. None of these cards were ever actually supposed to be particularly valuable. They've not proven to be particularly valuable, and that kind of makes sense. So if we go through a more traditional top 10, in at number 10 we've got Penny, but you'll notice that this is, yeah. Now I'm showing you the 3-month graph just because the 1-month graph, they look too, well, they look too flat, and it doesn't really show you the trends so much. But essentially what we've got here is a card that has been going down. Like, it started off as like a $35 card, and it's dropped down to about a $14 card. But you'll notice right at the end there, started flicking up. And that's not some huge jump, let's be perfectly clear. But we are seeing a bit of a swing upwards for Penny. Bearing in mind, it's a beautiful card. It's got an Umbreon on. I mean, $12 is very cheap. This strikes, and this is pure prediction and nothing more. This strikes me as a card that might end up being on the up. The number 9 card right now is Arven, and Arven is frankly all over the place. Starts off as a $23 card, drops down to 15, goes back up to 19, drops down to 14, and again, if we have a look, little flick upwards in price. We're not talking some huge jump in price here, but it does look like it's about to start creeping back up again. Don't expect this to be some like $50 card in the next couple of weeks, or anything stupid like that. But could this be a card that starts creeping back up again? Yeah. Frankly, it absolutely could. And remember, Arven is a very playable card. Sees a huge amount of play. Some people are going to want this for their deck. Now, somewhat sadly for me, in at number 8, it seems like the memo is out. It's Clive. Clive starts off as a $35 card, drops down to a $13 card. It's now basically up to a $16 card. And again, we're not talking about some gigantic jump in price here. We're not talking about it doubling in price or becoming unaffordable for your average collector or anything along those lines. We are talking about a fairly modest rise in price. But it has started going up. And essentially, it's got to be the artwork here. Like, this is one of the most beautiful cards in the Pokemon TCG in the Scarlet and Violet era. I think this is an absolutely stunning card, and I want it for the artwork. I don't like Clive as a character. I don't think it's a particularly playable card. I only want this card because it's beautiful and I love it. And again, if we have a look, you've got Penny on there. You've got Sylveon on there. There are some popular characters and Pokemon. There's a Psyduck. There's a couple of Applin in a tree. Why? I don't know. But I love it. I love that it's there. And I'm just warning you all now that this is exactly the kind of card that starts creeping up over time. And nobody really pays it very much attention because it's just creeping up over time. And then before you know it, oh, it's unaffordable. Okay, it's not going to get there for a while, but it is going up in price. In at number 7, we've got ourselves a Charmeleon. Yep, Charmeleon has started going up. Crashed from $25 down to $15. It's now up there at like an $18 card. Again, the rise is quite small. But Charmeleon shouldn't be this high on the list. At least, looking at the last couple of lists, we would not expect Charmeleon to be this high on the list. But it makes sense. The Charizard line is clearly the most popular of the Gen 1 first partner Pokemon lines. Charizard is a super playable deck right now. This is the best Charmeleon by some metrics. Gets protected from effective attacks on the bench. And you add that all together and yeah, that makes sense. But in the number 6, we've got Charmander. Because, you know, Charmander's Charmeleon, but cuter. Everyone always likes the basics and the stage 2s more than the stage 1s. That's just the way it goes. But the other thing is, of course, if you're playing them, you only need maybe one Charmeleon. Generally, people only play one in a deck. But the Charmander tends to be a 4 of. And, you know, it's Charmander. Starts off as a about $30 card. Drops down to 18. It depends where you look at it. Because on the one hand, you know, TCG Player got the market price listed at $25. But there's a recent sold at 21 and 22. But also another one at 27. So we can call this like a $25 card. Very tentatively. But this is just like a regular shiny. That's it. It's not a special illustration rare or anything like that. And I said before, because there's like 120 of these regular shinies, it's still going to be hard to pull the specific one that you want. But it is just a regular shiny at the end of the day. And this is all a bit weird. Now, in at number 5, we've got ourselves Pikachu. But Pikachu's going down. Like, start off's an almost $50 card. It's now, probably around about a $29 card. It actually fell down to about $26 and is recovering a little bit since. But that is a very, very sharp drop for Pikachu. A very sharp drop for Pikachu. Because it was unsustainable. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of these regular shinies and they're hard to pull. The specific one that you want. But they're still being pulled a lot. There's a lot of them out there. Any regular shiny holding on was going to be difficult, and Pikachu's done better than most, but we've still seen a significant drop. But what about the big special illustration rares? Well, to put it bluntly, they're kind of all falling. So, Ino started off life as an $85 card. It's plummeted down to a $40 card, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love this. This is wonderful. I am a massive, massive fan of this because it means that it's going to be just more available. More people that want to put this in their deck. And don't forget, INO is a very, 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 very playable card. It's a staple in basically everything. And this is just great. And here's the thing, right? If we look at the other INO, the one from Paldean Evolved rather than Paldean Fates, we see a similar kind of thing. Now, it's still significantly more expensive, but there is a massive, just plummeting in value, basically from as soon as we figured out there was going to be a new one coming. Now, it's still rocking like a $75 card, don't get me wrong, but this is still so much better than it was initially when it was, well over $100. So basically, not only is the one from Paldean Fates super cheap, but it's also helping to knock down the price of the other one. Although again, and I need to make this super clear, the one from Paldean Evolved is not yet super cheap. You have been warned. Now, the number 3 card in the set is Gardevoir. And again, if it's really obvious here. Like, this is just an absolute just plummeting in value. And I adore this. I think this is wonderful. I told you initially the fact that it was hovering around a $100 card was absurd. And it had no right being that high. I mean, right now, TCG Player have got it listed as a $50 card. And I'm not buying that. I don't think it's a $50 card. I think it's nearer to 40. Now, one of the recent sales is 40. The other two are 50 and 54. So, it's still hanging on in there. But I'm imagining this one is just going to keep falling. And I love it. Speaking of cards that are falling, and I love it, the Mew. I adore that this is falling. Because look, I've made absolutely no secret of the fact I think this Mew is amazing. I think Uzgaman the Artist is the only one they've done, incidentally, the only Pokemon card they've drawn, I think is super talented and brilliant. And I think this is a phenomenal card. And I love, love, love that they've gotten the opportunity to do one of these. I think it's just phenomenal. Could not be much more of a fan of this. But on release, this card actually jumped up, which was super annoying. It went from 140 down to 105, back up to 135. It's now sitting quite nicely at an $85 card. And I do think this is going to keep dropping, and I think this is wonderful. And then finally, obviously, the number 1 card in the set is Charizard. And look, you can see from the graph here that this is very, very clearly dropping. Very obviously dropping. Not dropping as fast as we might like. And yeah, I know it's nominally listed at $250. That's a pre-sale price. We all know the pre-sale price is way too high. It's always way too high. It's a lie, basically. It's never going to stay that high. The pre-sale prices are always ridiculous. And it dropped pretty quickly to 165, went back up to 190, and it's now hovering around 145. And I think that's fantastic. Is it going to stay? I mean, I still think this one's going to go lower. Like, we have 2 other Illustration Rare Charizard in the Scarlet and Violet era, both of which have plummeted further than this. I don't think this is going to end up as the most expensive one by a mile. I could see it being the most expensive, but by a big margin, nah. Don't think that's believable. Could be, though. Either way, I want to know what you think. I want to know if you've picked up these cards. I want to know if you've bought or sold any of them. I want to know what you think about the fact these prices continue to fall. I want to know anything you want to tell me. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Eric Ridgway, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and seems to be a very lovely person. So shout out to Eric for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.